Welcome back, everyone, to a Tuesday edition of On Q. Rich Quinones is here. Check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q On Q from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensbridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Our NBA guru from WMUR up there in Boston, my guy, hoops expert Jonathan Marshall, kind enough to join us for a couple moments. Short week with the holiday, brother, but always good to catch up. How are things?
Hey, the Eagles are 9-1, so things are amazing. Q, you guys found your backup quarterback of the future. I think things are looking up for us. I can't complain.
I'll tell you what, Christmas come early for the Eagles last night, and we'll just leave it at that. But the trend, to segue into a little hoops, good teams find a way to win, and we're going to go the opposite direction, the flip side of it. I've noticed a couple things early on in the NBA season. Scoring is up. We're seeing a lot more free, I guess you can say, style play, especially with the guards per se. But I'm also seeing some really bad teams, and I'm just wondering, you look around the league, I feel bad for the Detroit Pistons. Was it 11, 12 game losing streak? Kate Cunningham's pretty much their only scorer, their only option with that offense. I mean, you look at this team, are we looking at a historically bad Pistons team?
I think so. I mean, you mentioned Cade Cunningham. Looking at this roster, though, it's just a bunch of young guys that are developing and trying to find their way. And as we know, in any sport, right, in pro sports, you have a team full of young guys who haven't proven themselves.
Yep.
And it seems to be no direction, no identity, no veteran presence. It's going to be a disaster. We see what's happening in Houston right now, right? Yeah, you overpaid for a couple of vets, but you get a Jeff Green in there, you get a Fred VanVleet, you get a Dylan Brooks. Now what do we have? A team that's actually at least respectable
100%.
in the Western Conference, right? You want to play at least respectable ball. Detroit right now, and to me, a team looks at them on the schedule, that's put a W by, right? And so
unless you're Washington.
That's a whole Washington. I think at least Washington's hilarious to watch, right? The Jordan Poole situation, that's just fun. Detroit is just bad to watch.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, that's how I see them, and they're going to be in a constant flux of lottery situations until you really find an identity. I'm not even sure. I mean, Cade is a talented player, but is he that franchise-altering talent? And that's a thin line between all-star talent and franchise-altering talent. That's a thin line.
Like San Antonio. I mean, we know San Antonio is not a good team. They're 3-11, but they have a face of a franchise that the building block and maybe taking over the league as we speak. We talk all the time about that Western Conference, right? You mentioned it prior to the season. You thought one of your dark horses was going to be OKC. The Thunder right now, 10-4. And more importantly, young team, but they're winning on the road with a 6-1 clip. Talk a little bit about what they've been able to do early on in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited about how they finished up last season. They were just one of my teams that I just love to watch, right? And so you never know how a young team is going to take that next step with more eyes, more attention, right? But what I see from these guys, just a bunch of guys who can play basketball. They're comfortable with making plays, right? Chet Holmgren, SGA, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, Isaiah Joe, a former Sixer who couldn't find playing time in Philly, but all of a sudden is a player in OKC, right? And so great coaching, great talent development, great talent evaluation, and they have fun out there. They play with a certain energy, and you can see it. And all these guys, I think they have a perfect blend of young athleticism but also skill, and that's rare to see. Like SGA is one of the most skilled guys in the league. Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, a 7-footer, can do things a guy his height shouldn't be doing, right? And so you combine the skill with the youthfulness, the energy, and they love playing with each other. And at this point in the Western Conference, where most of these teams are trying to figure it out, a lot of these teams are dealing with injuries. A team like the Thunder are going to find themselves in great position because they're healthy, they're young, they're going to play with a consistent effort on a nightly basis. I can't say the same about a Lakers or Phoenix Suns team or a Clippers team. So the Thunder, to me, they're in a good position, while these teams I just mentioned, they're going to be scrambling in February and March.
Yeah, and you can add Golden State into the mix too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, worst time to lose Draymond Green when they had that losing streak. I know they picked up a win, but I mean, the NBA, it's so funny. We talk about these other sports, MLB, baseball, NFL, the hypocrisy. Explain to me how you can have a player brandishing a gun, fake or not, on IG, get pinched for pretty much half the season. Then you have a player with the background and the track record and the resume of Draymond Green, flat out choke Gobert and get, I think it was 5 games. He's been suspended 5 times throughout the course of his career, 9 games, 2 in the playoffs. The track record speaks for itself. The technical fouls, the fines, the fouls. I mean, it just does not make sense why he only got pinched with such a very short suspension. Do you agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, if they would have said 10 games, I would have been like, to me, I wouldn't have been shocked at a 10-game suspension, right? Considering his history. And so at this point, there was no reasoning behind Draymond even doing what he did to Gobert, right? Like, you're not even, this was a Klay Thompson and McDaniels situation, right? And so there was no threat toward Draymond or Klay. Like there was no threat. This is a basketball game, a pro NBA game. Nobody's really trying to fight out there. Let's just be honest. There's a few guys who may be about that life, but for the most part, there's nothing going on of that nature. And so at this point, what happened with Draymond and Jordan Poole last year with the punch, it's just gotten to a point where he's just out of control, right? And at what point is enough? He's already punched a dude in practice. He's putting a guy in a chokehold in the middle of a game, right? And so where do we draw the line? When is enough enough? Like, how far can he take it? Because at this point, we've seen a lot from Draymond over these years. And so
100%.
It's gotten to a point where it's out of control. You gotta look at the Golden State organization. Who's there to check him? Who is checking him? Is anybody checking him? I don't know. I really don't know, because at this point, Draymond's been there. He's been a part of that championship run. At this point, like, where's the leadership at in that organization to say something? Like, because obviously the actions aren't changing. I don't see it. He's the same player.
Yeah, you might start to see that window close. Phoenix, Clippers, Golden State. The Lakers, again, LeBron can log as many minutes as he can. It always comes to his Robin, right? Davis. He's got to be accessible. He's got to be on the floor. We're seeing a lot of retread with some of these veteran, older players. And then you look at a team going to the Eastern Conference right now, you want to at least be able to put a capable product on the field, on the court, I should say. And then I look at the Brooklyn Nets, and every time you turn around, somebody's injured for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I'm at the point right now, can we stop with the nonsense when it comes to Ben Simmons? I mean, enough is enough, right? He's going to be out again. They're 6 or 7. They dropped 2 straight, I think 3, 5 overall. So you don't have Ben Simmons, right? You don't have your quote floor leader. They've got a couple other injuries as well that they're dealing with. Cam Thomas, I think, is going to be out for a while, averaging about 26. So he's dealing with an ankle injury. It's like, can we just give up on the Ben Simmons situation? But I guess the point being is some of these teams are getting hit with injuries early on in the season, and that's really going to derail their season no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, the Brooklyn situation, that's once again talking about Detroit. I look at Brooklyn, a bunch of nice pieces, guys who will be great on contending teams, with Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Mm-hmm. Cam Johnson, love Mikal Bridges, Villanova guy, great. When it comes to Ben Simmons, I'm not sure if it was, I'm not sure if I told you this or if it was somebody, another colleague, but I said, I look at Ben as a role player now. That's what he is.
That's all he is.
If he's there or not, whatever, it's not, to me, it doesn't impact.
100%. He gives you 15 to 18 minutes. He gives you 8 to 10. Maybe that one night he has 15 to 18 and he plays on both ends of the floor. Right. Other than that, it's over for him.
To me, Cam Thomas and Lonnie Walker have a bigger impact. Not having those two guys are a bigger impact for a Brooklyn Nets team, right? And so that's just where it's at with Ben Simmons. And so the injuries are a huge thing, and it's more specifically in those older teams in the Western Conference that we just talked about, right? And so with these injuries, these teams are going to be left with looking at February and March, like where are we at in the standings? We're looking at a play-in versus a top 6 seed in the East or West, right? And to me, that's where it's impactful. Do you want to be relaxing come March and April, not worrying about getting into the playoff, or scrambling? Oh, I'm at the 8th spot. How can I get into the 6th spot? Yeah. I think that's what we're going to see. We might see a Lakers or a Clippers or a Phoenix Suns team scrambling in March and April, trying to make it to avoid a play-in situation, which can be dangerous.
Yeah, and that's why in the Eastern Conference, you have teams like Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, they're stockpiling some wins. I mean, obviously, Boston stubs their toe last night, and that was a really entertaining game against the Hornets. Bridges had that 3-pointer 1 under 7 seconds ago. To me, Tatum, stud, star. What do you have? 48 last night. I told you I believe he's going to be right there with the MVP. But I got to throw some flowers, man. To the kid Ball. I mean, he's really kind of it's a shame that's not a good team, and people look at him and his brother and his father and the track record. But if they really focus on the game, he's become the face of that offense, the face of the franchise, and he plays both ends of the floor. He distributes the ball. He'll take it to the tin. He's very athletic. He's given him good minutes. He's given him good production, and I'm happy for the kid because he's kind of taken the next step.
He's fun to watch. But it's a shame because if you're not winning, right, the conversation isn't going to be
overshadowed
towards you, right? You're going to be overshadowed, right? And so Charlotte's in a situation where they have this franchise talent. LaMelo is an amazing talent, right? How do we build around him? They picked up Brandon Miller. He's a promising rookie, but that's not enough, right? And so they have to start building a situation to where there's a winning environment, right? Learning how to win and building a capable team in the Eastern Conference. So I think that's the next task. I think having LaMelo and Brandon Miller is a good start. I like Mark Williams, their young big man. So I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be really critical in this franchise to see where this thing goes. But to have a point guard like LaMelo, you got a pretty good head start. And I'm excited to see how Brandon Miller develops. Mark Williams, like I said, a great young big man. In the Eastern Conference, they can shoot up over the next couple of years. Like, I think if they build this thing right, how we see Indiana, what they're doing, I think Charlotte should sort of mimic what they've done, right? Because they're not going to be a free agent destination, right? Mm-hmm. But what they've done with Tyrese Halliburton, what they've done with Benedict Mathurin and Bruce Brown, like picking up the right pieces, I would say, the right pieces. You may not be the superstar pieces, but the right pieces, I think, can help foster a winning situation in Charlotte. But LaMelo is probably one of the more fun guys to watch if you're a league pass person. Like LaMelo's special. He's special.
A little NBA talk on a Tuesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones is here. Jonathan Marshall, WMUR and Boston sports anchor and reporter, our NBA expert, our insider as well, kind enough to join us. You look at a team like Phoenix, right? Failure to launch. I mean, think about it. Booker, Durant, Beal, they have yet to play a second together in the regular season. It reminds me a couple years ago with the Nets when they brought in, right? We were talking about the big three and whatnot. We're not going to see that change until probably December at the earliest. Beal's still dealing with that lower back strain. I don't know if it's buyer beware, so to speak, but again, the way it shapes out in the NBA, you start to lose 2 or 3, 3 or 4, 4 or 5, and maybe you lose 6 or 7 in a row. And sometimes you're really digging yourself out of a hole because the teams ahead of you have a little margin of error. They've got some wiggle room. They stockpiled some wins. So I just don't know. I mean, I was looking at the durability, right? When we look at the number, 74 games missed over the previous 2 seasons. I'm wondering if you start to kind of have buyer's remorse of a 4-year, $207 million contract.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix is a tough situation to read. This is a team that I like going into it healthy, right? We couldn't have expected Bradley Beal to miss all this time. We don't know how. I mean, it's a back injury, so that could go either way, right? That can flare up on you. You never know.
Yeah.
So that's what concerns me. KD and Booker, that's an elite duo, no doubt. But to carry the load for what their expectations are when it comes to having a deep playoff run, that's not going to be enough, especially with the role players that they've assembled. I mean, Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, Nurkic, Drew Eubanks. I mean, these are guys that have stepped up and made some plays, but in the grand scheme of things, a consistent effort. Can you count on that? I'm not so sure. And so Phoenix is one of those teams right now. They're in the 7th spot. I wouldn't be shocked if late season we're talking about this team playing in the play-in. And that's how delicate these November and December games are, like, especially how the West is now. You can't throw away these games. I mean, Minnesota, Denver, and OKC with 10 wins. I mean, they're sitting pretty at the top 3. I think they're going to be up there for the duration of this season because they're going to be consistent with how they play. You can count on guys to be healthy. I know Jamal Murray's out for Denver, but as a whole, I think you can count on those guys being ready to play for the Lakers, for the Clippers, for the Suns, even for New Orleans. I mean, imagine having Phoenix, New Orleans, the Lakers, and the Clippers, or even the Warriors in the play-in. I mean, that would be insane. You know what I mean? Like, that would be we could have a Golden State Clippers play-in matchup, right? Like, or a Golden State Lakers matchup in the play-in. I mean, that's not too far out the realm.
You mentioned Minnesota. They're building something there too, right? Because they're bringing in the right pieces. They're signing, the right players. And I've only watched a handful of games, but again, early through the season, they're probably one of the better or the best perimeter defense out there in the league.
Yeah, for sure. What they're doing, I mean, I think it starts with Anthony Edwards and the energy that he brings. He's a talented player, but talented players don't always raise the bar and raise the level of others around him. And what he did against Boston, taking that challenge against Jason Tatum and locking him up, to me, that's special. Not a lot of superstar or all-star players have that mentality. A lot of guys are just too cool to, you know what I mean, to have that mentality or just shy away from it.
Sure.
Anthony Edwards isn't shying away from it. And so I'm excited to see his development. I think the next level for him is how do I work on, obviously he's an explosive scorer and an athlete, but the next evolution is being a creator for others and getting others good looks and just making others around him better. But just his energy and just his presence out there, you can feel it. And that's what that franchise is needed. Sort of like what they had with Kevin Garnett. It's that same mentality, right? And so that's what they've needed because it wasn't Karl-Anthony Towns. He is not the guy for that, right? And so I think Anthony Edwards is a perfect guy for that franchise to lead him into the next level. Come playoff time, you know my issues with Rudy Gobert, even with Utah. You know what I said. A team with Rudy Gobert defensively in the playoffs, I'm not sure. So I got to see it in the playoffs. But what they're doing regular season-wise, perfect.
Yeah, he's playing, when you think about defensively playing, quote, bigger than he really is. We'll close it out with your 76ers. I mean, look, Embiid's logging a lot of minutes. Maxi's logging a lot of minutes. Obviously, we saw that emergence. I think finally, it's amazing, right? We talked about in the offseason, blow it up, trade Embiid. Here we go. You got to get rid of James Harden. Finally got rid of that nonsense out of the locker room, that dog of a player. Let him go be someone else's problem. Then you look at some of these role players. But it does seem, and look, we know Embiid's a front runner, man. That's just a bottom line, and that's okay. He's still a great player, but he's certainly a front runner. But now he has his Robin, right? The Batman, the Robin in Maxey, who is just so much more decisive once he puts the ball on the floor. And we didn't see that in years past. I mean, yes, we knew the athleticism. We knew he was going to be a scorer, but now you're thinking late, Embiid's out, getting a quick blow, maybe in foul trouble, doesn't want to take the shot. At least now he's got a player he can rely on in Maxey. But I think Nick Nurse has to be commended, even though, again, he's running these guys a lot of minutes, right? I mean, Embiid's averaging about 35 a minute, so we'll see how that translates later on in the season. But with all that being said, he's got these guys playing, and the Sixers are playing really good basketball.
Coaching matters. Yes, basketball is such an individual sport when it comes to spotlighting these guys and their talents. It's the ultimate team sport for sure, but coaching when it comes to adjustments, but also giving players confidence in that freedom. And what you mentioned about Maxey is it's amazing what a change in voice or just a change in energy in the locker room can do for a player. Just that confidence to be emboldened to fully showcase what I can do, right? And not be so confined. Like it can be frustrating as a player in any sport to not feel like you can showcase your full capabilities. And I think with Maxey, we're seeing that with Nurse. Jaden Springer's getting more time, getting developed. Like this is 76ers basketball is actually, dare I say, fun to watch now. Because over the past few years, yes, they've been winning, but I don't know. Some nights is like, I don't feel the energy. I just don't. So adding
now, basketball season really starts to get juice right around late December, right?
For sure.
Start to kind of separate. Plus, they got Boston coming up on December 1st, so that'll be a national window game.
My one caveat with the Sixers, like we love what they're, they're playing well. Kelly Oubre, it's unfortunate what happened to him. Hopefully he gets back healthy, but he's been a great addition. My only caveat with the Sixers, I have not seen them get it done when it matters. I've seen Boston make the finals. I've seen the Bucks do
100%.
it. My only caveat, game 6, game 5 in the playoff situation in Milwaukee, in Boston, what are you going to do? When you're getting frustrated, when the shots aren't falling, what are you going to do?
Yep. Now, listen, 100%. And that's when the coaching really comes into play because, let's be honest, you want Doc in that situation or you want Nick Nurse. Now, granted, they both won, but at the end of the day, look at the worser track record being up 3-1 or never knowing when to call that timeout to stop the run. That's Doc. And again, I kind of leave it at that. All right, brother, you got any holiday plans?
Well, I'll be working, but I don't have to spend all day at work. So I'll just be, spending time with the special woman in my life. You know what I mean? So good quality time, family time and all that. Yeah. So yeah. What about you?
I'll be working, man. I'm gonna be calling some games remotely, and then we go with some basketball leagues coming up. So that's gonna keep me busy. Got the
Yeah.
boxing, got the show. So I'm not enjoying the cold weather. It's pouring right now. It's cold. I mean, are you signs of snow yet or what?
Apparently, we're getting our first snowfall tonight. So I'm excited about that one, as you can tell. So
It's
yeah.
so it's it's so brutal, man.
It's
I
cold. It's
can't.
like in the 30s. It's cold. It's cold.
It's not even. It's like I do a lot of spots in different states, and then I'll have a lot of guys I know from Florida, and we'll come on and be like, ah, yeah, welcome back, 75 and sunny. And I'm sitting here like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? We're supposed to get hammered too this year, but that's the beauty of doing stuff remotely.
There you
We
go.
can always get a lot of stuff done. So, all right, don't forget, everyone, give Jonathan a follow on X at John_Marshall3. And I mentioned sports reporter anchor at WMUR, my guy, our hoops guy. We got to start doing this again during the week, running
Yeah.
through these games, getting some
Oh, yeah.
opinion, having some good topics and debate as well. Always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments, pal.
Appreciate you, Q.